Now, if the scientists are anywhere near correct, then this is the greatest challenge facing humanity today. It is the greatest challenge humanity has ever faced and probably will ever face.
If someone asked me if the climate system were changing, I would say, look at the data.
The Arctic is experiencing, I would say, a crisis.
From all these collective studies of the whole Arctic region, you can see that it's warming much faster than the rest of the planet.
That iceberg is a kilometre across.
It's as if the entire lower tip of Manhattan broke off, except that the thickness, the height of it, is equivalent to buildings that are 2.5 or 3 times higher than they are. That's a magical, miraculous, horrible, scary thing. It took 100 years for it to retreat 8 miles from 1900 to 2000. From 2000 to 2010, it retreated 9 miles. So in 10 years, it retreated more than it had in the previous 100.
And taken all together, we have the unmistakable footprint of a system in what we call self-amplification, or runaway behavior.
From here you are in the early 1900s till today. Blue is cooler than average and yellow and orange are warmer than average. And you can see here it's still some blue areas and so on, but starting in the 1970s, you start to see the yellow and orange colors predominating. And by the time this ends, at 2010 or so, you can see what the world looks like today in this picture. There's warming everywhere. There's more warming over the continents than over the oceans. There's more warming in the north than in the south. And there's the strongest warming in the Arctic. This is a Mercator projection, so it exaggerates the area of the Arctic, but the warming is strongest in high northern latitudes. And that's because of a number of feedbacks that we think we understand, of which the most important is that when warming occurs in the far north, the ice and snow melt, as we've seen, and the ice and snow having melted reveal darker water and darker land that was under them, which reflect less sunlight and therefore absorb more sunlight. So the chain of events is carbon dioxide causes the warming melts snow and ice, the melted snow and ice make the surface darker, the darker surface absorbs more sunlight, and that adds to the warming.
And that means that sun's energy is being absorbed into the tundra, the frozen areas of the northern continental masses, and into the open ocean where the ice was, so that the whole system is now accelerating and accelerating and accelerating. And the hotter it gets, the faster it gets hotter. The faster it gets hotter, the more water vapor. The more water vapor, the faster it gets hotter. The faster it gets hotter, the less ice. The less ice, the less reflection. So the faster it gets hotter. You begin to get the idea? It has to be a downward curving, what we call exponential decay. And if you project that line forward, as is done in this particular setting of the equations and understanding of Arctic ice mass loss, then once again it shows zero ice floating on the Arctic Ocean by the end of summer 2015.
And what we're getting here now is a rate of retreat that I believe is unprecedented in terms of the last 10,000 years.
There have been changes in the Arctic, in the permafrost, in terms of the temperature over time, not only in the shallow layers near the surface, but at 10, 20, and 50 meter depths, you're seeing changes that are even more rapid. That indicates that not only is there heating near the surface, but that this heat is being transported to depth very efficiently.
The permafrost stores methane, as Richard was talking about. It's currently melting. It's warmer up there. It's like 5 degrees warmer up in the Arctic than it is. The average temperature of the world is only up a degree, but up in the Arctic it's up 5 degrees. And it's releasing 50 million tons per year, which is a billion tons of CO2, and it's obviously rising. If it all went, we'd basically all be dead. I mean, and it's happening now, and the problem here is it's accelerating. Once it starts generating, through this process or any of the other ones I talk about, once those processes generate more CO2 than we do, it won't matter if we stop completely. It's going to keep going. These are positive feedback loops. And by the way, it's not in the models.
We found, as far as the organic matter coming out of this hill slope, is that it's much more bioavailable, meaning it's yummier for the microbes that are decomposing it. Sites like this, where the permafrost is releasing organic matter, act as accelerators. They speed up the process of human-caused climate change. So it's a large amplification of what we're doing. It feeds back onto our impacts. It's important to realize that the scale and rate of change that we're talking about now is several degrees, 2 to 5 degrees in just 100 years. So this is much faster than has happened in the last 50 million years. We're talking about unprecedented climate change and a very rapid, abrupt response from this ecosystem.
The fifth implication of the Arctic dynamics concerns the feedback of the methane release. It is probably one of the most important issues that we have to examine.
We will be in danger of destabilizing these things called methane hydrates, which store a lot of methane at the bottom of the ocean in a kind of frozen form. 10,000 billion tons of the stuff, and they are known to be destabilized by warming.
That means that the processes, all the processes that serve destabilization of everything, of the sea ice, of the water column, of the currents increasing, I mean the movement of water beneath the sea ice increased. So everything looks anomalous. Even from our experience from these 10 years, everything looks anomalous. And this is what makes him thinking that, making him think that the worst thing might happen.
Look at this. In a matter of days, just days, we're having this huge area. Look at this. Going, almost exploding with methane. The only way this is possible is by melting of methane hydrates. It's just the only explanation.
Well, obviously, the Arctic is connected to the rest of the world. It is part of the world, and what happens in the Arctic inevitably has implications and consequences and spin-off for the rest of the planet.
There's not agreement on how much we need to do, how fast. To be honest, I don't think there needs to be, because the one thing I am certain of is that we will not do as much as the scientists say we need to do. That's why I've never sort of looked that closely at that particular question, because what the scientists say we need to do is over here, what we're currently doing is way over here, and what various global agreements have tried to get us to do and often failed is somewhere over here. So the gulf is so enormous that I mean, it's a perfectly fair question, but for that reason I've never really looked at it in that much detail.
CO2 begins to increase temperature. Increased temperature drives water vapor feedback. Water vapor feedback accelerates heating. And then we begin to get hotter conditions for some of the tropical forests. We get burn and dieback and increased release of carbon dioxide from the biomass of the planet. It's a different set of feedbacks from that operating in the high Arctic, but it is nonetheless potent. And as in the Arctic, so tomorrow in the world as a whole.
1 degree is bad. 2 degrees is very bad. 3 degrees is biblical. The Amazon turns to desert. 4 degrees is sort of is beyond that. 5 degrees is anyone else here? And 6 degrees is silence.
And if the implications of jet stream behavior and food production and Arctic dynamics spin off into our survival as a species, into our economics, into our food production, into the abandonment of the poor and the inability to sustain a population of 8, 9, 10 billion people. So also the increasing acceleration of global behavior, which will inevitably follow unless we are able to intervene, to slow it down, bring it to a halt and reverse it, then without that intervention, global dynamics hold a dark future for humanity, a dark future for the biosphere of which we are a part. It is time to take action not only for the Arctic, but for the global crisis in which we are all placed.